You being present and having your cameras on as much as you can. Uh, we will have some scheduled breaks, but just take care of your needs as you need to. What we can go ahead and start with is if the Literacy Squared team wants to go ahead and introduce themselves, and then what Dr. Hernandez goes ahead and comes in and she can introduce herself. ¿Qué les parece? Ok, adelante entonces.
Buenas tardes a todos y a todas. Mi nombre es María Ruiz Martinez. I am one of the team members for Literacy Squared. I'm so happy to be joining you today. Although I think I speak for Dr. Escamilla as well, that we wish we could be with you in person, but we're glad that technology is enabling us to gather and learn together in this virtual space. Dr. Escamilla, would you like to present yourself?
No, hello, buenas tardes, or buenos días in the case of Colorado. Well, we just flipped over into tardes. So a todos, a todas, we are delighted. I want to just echo what Maria said, and we wish we could be there in person. We love San Antonio. We love going. We eat too much when we go, but we eat everything in sight. So we're sorry we're not there in person, but we're happy to be with you in spirit and virtually today. So that's all I really have to say. We're going to get to know each other better over the next 3 days, and we're looking forward to it.
So with your permission now, I would like to grab your screen so that I can share my screen with you. And everyone should be able to see the screen. Let me know in the chat if you're not able to. So
Maria,
we would be
for just a moment. I thought we were waiting for Dr. Hernandez. Is that still true?
Oh.
Okay, I'm gonna.
You can continue if you'd like. She can once she comes in, she can introduce.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Sorry, Maria. I just wanted to make sure we weren't jumping protocol.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hopewell. And please feel free to pause or stop me at any moment. And we can do that. You know, one of the things that we just want to go over with you is that we'll be using Zoom as a primary tool of interaction. And we will also be using an additional tool called menti.com. And I can also share the link in the chats with you. I wonder if maybe Dr. Escamilla can type menti.com in the chat, and you can open up. Thank you, Dr. Escamilla. So you can open up another page on your internet browser on your computer, or you can use your cell phone and open up a web page through your cell phone and just go to menti.com. Do not worry about entering a code yet. We will give you a code in a few minutes. So I'll give everyone a little bit of time to do that. If you're not able to do that right now, don't worry about it. We will come back to it, but just keep it in your mind that this is another interactive tool that we will be using during the PD session. Okay. And this PD session will focus on an overview of Literacy Squared. So the lead presenters for today are myself, Maria Ruiz Martinez, and Dr. Kathy Escamilla. And I know this is a Zoom world now, so I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Zoom icons, but we ask that you keep yourself muted to reduce background noise. And we were encouraged that at the beginning of this session, it would be great if you keep your video on, because it helps build community. And you also have the option of changing your screen name to your preferred name. So if you go to participants and you click on more next to your name, you will see an option that says rename, and you can write your name there with your preferred name and maybe add what grade you are currently teaching. I'll give you a few seconds to do that if you want, if you wish. And also feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions like you have been doing. And lots of folks have been adding some comments there. We will regularly pause during the PD to answer any questions you pose in that chat. So meet the faces behind the development and creation of Literacy Squared. Throughout the presentation, we will be referring to this book by Literacy from the Start, Literacy Squared in Action. And we were informed that you will be getting the book in your hands soon. And here is our team for this school year, currently working for Literacy Squared. So today you'll see me there and Dr. Escamilla, and in the next couple of days you will meet the rest of the team. Some of them are joining us today in this Zoom call. Okay, so we want to be able to know who is with us today. So I encourage you to open up menti.com right now. And this is the code that you are going to enter. It's going to ask you for a code, and the code is 6964476. And what grade do you teach? Okay, I see one person so far, 2 people in kindergarten. Okay, I see 7 people have responded. So far we have pretty equal, 10 people have responded. Great. Perfect. I'll give folks a few more seconds to enter their response. So if you just joined us, we're in menti.com. You're able to use your phone or another screen on your computer. And it's going to ask you for the code 6964476. And this will be the first and last time you enter the code moving forward. And I see 23 of you have responded. So we have many teachers in first grade, 8 teachers in first grade, 4 in kindergarten, 6 in second grade, and 7 that chose others. So I'm imagining that maybe you work across grades. Great. Okay. So I want to go over our agenda for today. So today we will be with you from 1 to 4:30. And we have allocated breaks throughout the PD to give your eyes and body much needed opportunities to rest. And tomorrow and Thursday, you will receive more information about the specific parts of Literacy Squared, Oracy, Lada Lada, and the Dictado. And I also want to mention that throughout this PD, we will be doing surprise giveaways. So we will be giving away a pack of amazing books, and Dr. Escamilla, thank you for having those giveaways available for today. So we want to actually give our first giveaway right now. On the chat feature, Dr. Escamilla, if you would like to post our first question.
Our first question is, hold on, Maria. I'm slow at this.
Oh, Dr. Escamilla, I have it.
Oh, thank God. I thought I couldn't find it. I'm so sorry. There we go.
There we go. When you think about biliteracy, bilingualism, what word comes to mind? Okay, I see Miss Perez says culture. We have others saying 2 languages, culture, emergent bilinguals, combining languages, developed brain, languages, bicultural. These are awesome. Oh, family, brain power, absolutely. Many of these answers are on point. Advantage, 2 languages. Excellent. Tradition, absolutely. Languages, culture. Okay, so keep entering your word. And
It's culture.
Dr. Escamilla, please help me because I have my bag of chips here with me, and I'm going to draw a
Yes.
number.
Okay.
Starting from the first question I entered in the chat, we'll count down from that. And let me pick a number here. We have 47 participants in the Zoom call. Hopefully everyone had a chance to enter their answer. Okay. I drew number 5. Number
Okay,
5.
that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Erica Betancourt Santiago.
Congratulations, Ms.
So-
Brenta Cruz Santiago. Okay, so I would like to ask you, the winner, to please message Dr. Escamilla with your address privately.
Yes.
And let us know if you're not able to do that, but please message Dr. Escamilla with your address so that we can mail your giveaway to you. Thank you so much to everyone who participated and gave us an idea of how you're thinking about biliteracy and bilingualism. That's going to help this conversation move forward. Okay.
I just want to say, when I look at this, how hard it is, right, for us to think of only one word when we think of biliteracy, or biculturalism or bilingualism. It's so hard to think of one word. And so you notice that we gave you credit, no matter if it was one word or a whole sentence you put down there.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, Dr. Escamilla. It's hard for me to encapsulate like the idea of biliteracy, bilingualism in one single word.
One single word, yeah.
Yes, it's pretty tough. So we gave you a big challenge here, but thank you for all of your answers. So today, in the next about 45 minutes, we want to give you an overview of what is Literacy Squared. What do we propose with Literacy Squared, and what are some of the unique features of our holistic biliteracy framework? So for Literacy Squared, our mission is to further the development of instructional programs and practices that develop bilingualism, biliteracy in Spanish and English, while concomitantly developing the assessment tools and a research base to support the academic legitimacy of biliteracy development in the US. And we want to officially welcome you to the Literacy Squared Familia. I've had the privilege of going to San Antonio last year, and like Dr. Escamilla said, the food is absolutely amazing. So hopefully, Ms. Coronavirus will leave us, and so that we can go back to Texas, go back to San Antonio and enjoy of great people and great food. One of the other places that is also part of the Familia is Brazil. Dr. Escamilla and some of other people from Literacy Squared were able to travel to Brazil. And so some of the educators and teachers there are also familiar with Literacy Squared. So Literacy Squared began in 2004. And over the past decades, we have developed and refined 4 basic components: research, assessment, professional development, and also the instructional piece. All of these 4 components are all equally important. And today we will go further into discussing assessment at the latter half of the PD. And we will absolutely be touching on the rest of the points throughout this PD, but also these elements will be discussed tomorrow and then on Thursday. And here is a visual representation of lectoescritura al cuadrado. So there we see research, professional development, assessment, and instruction. So how's everyone feeling? Are we all awake? Dr. Escamilla, any questions in the chat so far?
Let me see. No.
We have Dr. Hernandez who joined us.
Oh,
now.
good.
It might be a great time for her to go ahead and introduce herself and talk about the
Perfect.
importance of Literacy Squared here in San Antonio and San Antonio ISD.
Thank you, Esme. Hello, everybody. Hi, Kathy. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you, Olivia?
Fine. I miss you guys.
We miss you.
Yes, thank you. And I haven't had the privilege of meeting you, Maria, but thank you for being here today and launching this training.
Thank you, Ms. Olivia.
Thank everybody else who made the effort for being here today during these difficult times. And I know it's hard for us right now to find subs in our schools. And this session is being recorded, as many of you know. So many of your colleagues will be watching this at home or at the time that, whenever they can. But you are very fortunate to be here in person receiving this training. And I just wanted to let you know that, boy, time has gone by really quick, right, Kathy?
Oh my gosh.
In 2016, it was around 2016, we started here. Kathy started her work with Literacy Squared here in 2016 with a very, very large group of teachers, K through 2nd grade teachers at Region 20, all learning what Literacy Squared is all about. And here we are now, 2020, and we're still working on it. And just wanted to let you know that this is the most important component of our dual language program. It is the biliteracy framework of our dual language program in San Antonio ISD, and we're very proud to have Literacy Squared as that key component that really strengthens the dual language program through biliteracy, through a very, very strong biliteracy program in which we have paired literacy. We have done research with Dr. Escamilla. We've done professional development and a strong instruction. So be assured that San Antonio ISD is leading the nation in implementing dual language programs with a strong biliteracy model. And it's done with the work that Dr. Escamilla and her team has done. And they've been coming every year. And you're not gonna find this in other places. Very few places will you find this type of work and this type of support straight from the authors. And we consider you friends and supporters, and more than anything, think tanks, and we work with them. Every time we have a question and we don't know how to do things, we'll call them, right? And we work things out. We brainstorm all our problems or issues that we may have to ensure that you have the best support in your classroom, and that every day our teachers and our principals are learning how to teach our children how to read and write in English and Spanish with exemplar practices in the classroom. And I think that we're there. And do we have to refine it? Yes, we do. Every time. We always have to continue refining our practices. But I know that we have a very strong program. So be assured that you're gonna have a good time, and that San Antonio ISD is bringing you the best when it comes to biliteracy. So thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you.
And we're very proud of our of our model. And not only that, but in San Antonio ISD, we have biliteracy units written for K through 5th grade by the specialists, by the bilingual department, and pretty soon by many teachers too. Our next step is to bring teachers into writing them also. So, and we want to see who's out there really implementing those biliteracy units and who can jump on board with our team in writing and refining our units. That is something else that you will not find in many districts, a curriculum that follows the Literacy Squared model, and that is at your service there. You can always reach out to that and to those documents and refine them and make them your own, right? So once again, we've got the best program in the nation, and you're gonna learn. Many of you who's the first time that you're gonna see this, you're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna enjoy this practice. It's gonna take time because there's a lot to learn. This is your first time, but they come back every year. And do not forget to read the book, because reading the book helps a lot too. Okay, so thank you very much, Kathy. I think I'm speaking a little bit too much, but you have a lot that you're going to be picking up and learning today and tomorrow for 3 days, right?
Yeah,
Is
3
it
days.
3 days? Olivia, Jody, all of them are coming. So hopefully I'll jump in late tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Olivia. And we are so grateful for this partnership. I cannot tell you how much we have benefited from and enjoyed the partnership. We're all missing the children face to face. I know you are too, but at least we get an ability to interact with teachers, and we've been missing that too. So we're really looking forward to these next 3 days.
You're working with Esmeralda now. I'm moving into more overseeing literacy district wide. So I'll knock on your door pretty soon for some questions, but it's exciting. It's exciting work.
Thank you. We're happy to be here. Well, we're happy to be here in Colorado, but we wish we were in San Antonio. We're happy to be with you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So saludos a todos.
Thank you, Ms. Olivia, for your kind words and that introduction. Thank you. Okay, so we want to sort of look at Literacy Square's paradigm shifts. And we're going to talk about the new normal that exists right now, understanding 21st century simultaneous bilingual children. And we're really going to focus on what simultaneous means. Then after our break, we will also look at assessments and valuing biliteracy development through assessment and evaluation practices. And over the next couple of days, we will look at specific features of the holistic biliteracy framework, and these other points will be discussed. So I want to go ahead and we want to be able to know a little bit more about what you believe and what you see as part of your practice as teachers. So we are going to engage in a questionnaire called Where Do You Stand? We're going to give you a statement, and then we want you to decide whether you agree with the statement, disagree, or if you aren't sure or haven't really developed an opinion yet about it. So the first statement that we want to go to is, let me get this together. Okay. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? We should determine a student's dominant language. So we're going to go to menti.com, and everyone should already be on the screen. And if you're not there yet, you can still join us at menti.com. And if it asks for the code, it's 6964476. So far, I see 17, 18 of us have been able to enter menti.com. Okay, and again, the statement is, if you need to see it once more, we should determine a student's dominant language. Okay, we have most people who have responded. Okay, so we're pretty split here. Many of us agree, and most of us also disagree, and we have 3 people who are not sure. So I want to invite some of you who said that you agree with the statement, we should determine a student's dominant language. Let's have a participant who agrees. If you picked agree, you can either raise your hand or simply unmute yourself, and we want to hear from you. Why do you agree with we should determine a student's dominant language? Okay, I'm double checking to see if anyone raised their hand.
Well, I agreed. So I mean, I can just kind of go through what my thought process is. So the reason that I always try to see what the dominant language, first of all, it's very obvious for with the kids. You literally just have to sit back and observe them and really just see what comes out of their mouth, if Spanish comes out of their mouth or if English. But the reason that I always determine is because those are how I pair my bilingual pairs. So if I know that I have a kid that is very strong in Spanish, and I have one that's okay in Spanish but needs a little bit more reinforcement, I know who to pair them with. So that's, for me, it's more of a instructional focus. And sometimes, like, if I know that they're very good at one language over the other, I use that language to help them with the other language. So, I mean, sometimes they don't get it if you don't tell them in the whatever the L2 is, if it's English or Spanish. But if you just really briefly go over it in their dominant language, they get it immediately. It's like to kind of help for you not to get them to get frustrated with what you're trying to show them.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rendon, for giving us your thinking behind it.
Mm-hmm.
What about someone who disagrees with the statement? There were quite a few who, it was pretty split, right, Dr. Escamilla?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was
spoken of-
almost even.
Yeah, I'm wondering if anybody is willing to share their thinking around why you disagree with the statement.
I can go ahead and share my thought process.
Thank you, Mrs. Estrada.
Hi, so this is my first year, so I don't have a lot of knowledge about the bilingual program. But from my personal experience, growing up, my dominant language was Spanish. It was the only thing that my parents spoke to me in. But throughout the years, my English developed so well that I feel that it's my dominant now. But the question to me is, if they ask me which one is your dominant language, I cannot answer English nor Spanish. They're both in my background, so it's a very difficult question. Now, if I look at it in the perspective of if they take an assessment, if they take map testing, the results will indicate that maybe they are good in one. They're a little bit better in one language than the other, so there will be maybe a dominant or something that they're better in. But the question itself of just saying this is your dominant language, I feel like it's not fair to the students.
Thank you for your thoughts, Mrs. Estrada. And this is definitely, like, the reason why we have these statements is because they're quite complicated, right? And they're complicated by how we were trained as teachers, but then also from our experience in the classroom, and what we're seeing are the realities of our students. So for Literacy Squared, we're proposing a paradigm shift where we instead of thinking about searching for a dominant language, we instead want to increase understanding of simultaneous bilingualism. And this is sort of goes to what Ms. Estrada was sharing with us. What is simultaneous bilingualism and why is it important to consider? Well, according to statistics, 85% of emerging bilingual children are born in the US. So simultaneous bilingualism means that before the age of 5, we are exposed to 2 languages. Those are individuals who were exposed to 2 languages before age 5. Sequential bilingualism is exposure to 2 languages after the age of 5 or 6. So it's basically acquiring a second language after a first language has a firm foundation, which is what someone mentioned before. Now, we want to know who you are. So think about if you are a simultaneous bilingual, were you exposed to more than 2 languages before the age of 5? Or are you a sequential bilingual? Maybe you're a Spanish-English sequential bilingual where you learned Spanish first and then you were exposed to English after the age of 5 or 6. Perhaps you're a sequential bilingual where you learned English first and then you were exposed to Spanish, or maybe you have other languages where you learned after the age of 5. So let me go ahead and invite you to enter your answer in Menti.com. Who are you? Okay, so far the majority of us, it looks like we are sequential bilinguals.
Wow.
We learned Spanish first, and after the age of 5, we learned English. Okay, so it's looking like more than 60%. Dr. Escamillo, how do you identify?
I identify as a sequential bilingual, starting with English, and then I added on Spanish in elementary school, starting in elementary school.
We complement each other because I also am a sequential bilingual, but I learned Spanish first at home. And when I was about in first grade, so I first grade is we're 6 or 7 years old, that's when I started learning English because my family moved from Mexico to Wisconsin. And so I didn't really grow up listening or be exposed to English at all, even in television. So I think 38 of us responded. And that's interesting, Dr. Escamilla. 68% of our participants today are sequential bilinguals. Okay. Why is this important and why are we bringing up, right, age of acquisition? Well, we know that the vast majority of existing research on bilingual development has been done on sequential bilingualism. So for, research that benefits Dr. Escamilla and I, and more than 60% of those of you joining us today in this Zoom session. The majority of US bilingual and dual language programs are based on sequential bilingualism. And the majority of 2 language children in the US right now are actually simultaneous bilinguals. So that is why we are proposing a shift in rethinking and really placing age of acquisition as something important to consider in our instruction. Simultaneous bilinguals and bilingualism is often misunderstood. And that's because normal bilingual behaviors may be viewed as deficits from a sequential bilingual perspective. These are the reasons why. So I want to go ahead and speak briefly on each one of these elements. The first one is interference or translanguaging. So we have, here are a few examples. So we have, este es red, ¿verdad, teacher? Or Kimberly está esquipiando. Or my mommy planched my shirt. Guardé mi tablet en mi cubby. Let's go, vámonos. We often see these sort of these sentences, our students using language in this way. And there are two interpretations we often make. Sometimes we say, oh, if they're speaking this way, maybe they're low in both languages. Or maybe some of you have heard of the term semilingual, Spanglish, or even Tex-Mex, right? All of these have this sort of negative connotation, this negative framing of students' language. What we're saying is that perhaps let's take a look at what the language that is actually being used and how it's being learned in context. Sometimes we're overgeneralizing grammar rules or in the way that we use language. Some words can't be translated. And sometimes we use a mix of words because we want to add emphasis. So let's take a look at what I'm trying to say here. This is a writing sample from Dr. Escamilla. Is this a second grade student?
Second grade, that's right.
So I included the writing here, but I also have a slide where we can read it maybe a little bit better. So as I read the paragraph the second grader wrote, I want you to think about what you or teachers at your school say about this child's writing. And I encourage you to respond in the chat feature so that we can learn from you. My story is about three pigs and one lobo feroz. The lobo tiró down the house of paja. Then the little pig go running to the house of his brother, and his brother said, oh, I can't read.
What happened to the house?
Thank you. What happened to the house? The Zoom icons were in my way.
I know. Yes.
Okay.
Occupational hazard.
So
So
we want
Maria in the chat, there's a mi truca está liqueando as an example of the use of two languages.
I love it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Triana.
Jorge Triana. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Maria.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. So let's hear from more people. What would you or teachers at your school, if you were to assess the second graders' writing, what would you or teachers at your school say about the writing?
So who would write Spanish?
Okay, so great answer. So Ms. Rendon shared most teachers will not be able to read this unless they work with bilingual students. Ms. Diaz says he is writing English as how he would write Spanish or how he would listen to it in Spanish. Okay, so we're already making that translanguaging connection. Ms. Reyes says the student is able to communicate the story in the correct sequence. Oh, great point, Ms. Reyes. He is using both languages as a resource to share their writing. Absolutely. Okay, and then
And Miss Rendon, this is a great comment. Most teachers would not be able to read this unless they are bilingual. You said unless they work with bilingual students, but I'm going to add unless they themselves are bilingual. That's a great comment.
Great comment. And we have a question. Is this considered part of the translanguaging process? Such an important question. We'll get back to that question in a bit. And we have two more comments. The student is showing a story in sequence. The student is using their full repertoire, and we are able to see phonic awareness. And then our last comment from Ms. Martinez-Cano, the student is in transition from Spanish to English. And Ms. Guzman just entered, I place myself in the student's shoes, and knowing I did this myself when learning both languages, I think I would look at the positives of the writing. He writes with capital letters and periods. He understood the sequence of the story. I do believe I would be positive about it and encourage more writing. Dr. Escamilla, any initial reactions to what our teachers are sharing?
No, I think these are all great observations. And I know that you have more to say about this, but they're wonderful responses. And it goes to understanding how a bilingual mind works, which is what we're about doing. And so far in our history of research of schooling in the US, we know a lot more about how a monolingual mind works than a bilingual mind. And so all of these observations fit very well into this idea that we need to understand better how a bilingual mind works. I'm going to give you one example that goes with Jorge's example that he gave. The other day I was reading an essay from someone who was who's a native Spanish speaker and was writing in English is her second language. And she was talking about parent involvement. And she said the schools need to make some homely investments. And she meant to say investments in children's homes. But when she said homely investments, homely doesn't have the same meaning as home. And this is the kind of stuff I do in Spanish all of the time. But is quite common for our kids. And so what we're seeing in this child is this creative use of two languages to try to solve a problem of communication. And I think we have to know that it happens with children, but it also happens with adults.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much to everyone that entered a response in the chat. It's great to hear a little bit more about how you're thinking of these things. So what I have on this page is a lot of what many of you have already expressed in the comments. The use of Spanish phonics, like for pigs, right? Pigs, his, using the J, right, for the H sound, and we know what for what. And then Spanish syntax, this students also use. So when they said the house of paja, the straw house, they were using Spanish syntax there. Then we have also examples of lexical code switches. So lobo for wolf, paja for straw, feroz for ferocious. Let's do another giveaway, Dr. Escamilla. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so let's give away some more books. Let's maybe go ahead and answer our question in the chat. So what idea resonates with you related to the first paradigm shift? So basically what we have been discussing so far, what idea is resonating with you? How are you relating to it? Is this something that you have seen in your classroom with your students? Have you come across it looking at children's writing, bilingual children's writing with you or with other colleagues? Okay, great. We're already receiving some answers here. I think of Delpas. Okay.
Delpas, that's a test. Yeah, that's a very good point. We should come back to that later.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have translanguaging is a more inclusive way of seeing language processing in our students. Great. All right, okay, great. Some people, it resonates with me. and my own experiences with my students writing. And oh, Diario Duo, Dr. Escamilla.
Mm-hmm.
Cultural enrichment. Telpas again, yes. Multiple ways to view a bilingual student. Two languages interacting. Seeing in students writing. It takes a bilingual person to read bilingual writing. That's so
Yeah,
true.
it is
So
true.
many reading quickly through all of these.
I did not have to be corrected back then. I think that's a wonderful comment. You know that some of us still carry the scars from when we were corrected. Anything that came out of our mouth was corrected. And so that is so true. Nice comment. Okay, I see that Maria is looking for a number, and I'll count.
I'm looking for a number right now for the sake of time. All right, close my eyes. And let's see. Oh, wait a minute. I took 2 out at the same time. Okay. Oh, okay. 1.
Number one.
Number 1.
It pays. So Claudia Lozano, you thought of Telpass. You're the lucky winner. Would you message me your address so I can send you some books? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, there you are.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's go on to another statement. And I think we can do one more before we take a 10-minute break. How does that sound to everybody? The first one is, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Children will be confused if we allow them to use 2 languages simultaneously. Let's go to our responses using Menti. Okay. Children will be confused if we allow them to use 2 languages simultaneously. Do we agree, disagree, or are we not sure? Okay, so far I see almost half of us have answered, so let's take a look. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Many of us are disagreeing. Okay, let's head back and we have one agrees and we have 2 disagree, or no, 2 neutral, not sure, and then the rest of us are disagreeing. So this is what we're saying. We want to switch from strict separation of languages to thinking about strategic use of language. So languages are viewed as mutually reinforcing. That's what we have been witnessing from your responses in the chat. Children are acknowledged to be capable of bidirectional transfer. So what do we mean by a strategic use of language? We mean it is a planned use of both languages to maximize learning and to achieve the greatest efficiency in the classroom environment. And we don't want to confuse strategic use of language with concurrent translation. We have in the book, when you get it, page 185, this is where we speak to the strategic use of language. So what do we mean by concurrent translation? So let's say that we are teaching a lesson about Benito Juarez, and we give our students both the Spanish and the English, and the English translation to that Spanish paragraph. Is this a strategic use of language? Well, we're saying a strategic use of language is the use of one word or phrase offered in the non-target language in order to clarify a confusion. It is the use of one word or phrase offered in the non-target language to enable students to interact meaningfully with text or context or content. The use of the non-target to provide directions to an activity to maximize participation, and it is the use of the non-target language to manage. So let's take to manage classroom activities. So let's take a look at what we mean with some examples here. So let's say the teacher says, Cinderella is going to a ball. What is she going to do? And then students say, oh, she's going to play football or basketball. What we're saying is a strategic use of translation would be, ¿saben qué? Ball sí es una pelota, pero también significa un baile. So here in this example, we see that the teacher used Spanish strategically to explain the confusion about the word ball. She did not concurrently translate, so she didn't give the entire, she was very strategic about which words she wanted to use in the non-target language to clarify. Here is another example. Let's say students read the following. Últimamente, Carlos se ha portado muy bien. Por esa razón, su papá le dio su domingo. Using English to get to Spanish, the teacher tells students, by the way, domingo is a day of the week and also a word for an allowance. This is another example of strategic use of language. Okay, before we go on to the next one, Dr. Escamilla, I'm seeing we are at the hour. Should we take a 10-minute break?
We certainly could. We don't want to ruin people's eyes. Bad enough we're in a pandemic.
That's right. So let's take a 10-minute break and let's all come back 10 after the hour.
Okay.
It looks like most of us are back. I see that most participants are back. Great. I hope everyone was able to stretch their bodies, take a few deep breaths, rest your eyes, and let's go ahead and continue. So this is the last statement, and it reads, Spanish language instruction should be maintained until students graduate. So let's go to our Mentimeter Menti page. And let me go ahead and switch it for you. There we go. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Spanish language instruction should be maintained until students graduate. Okay, so far we have about 15 answers. I'm going to give you a few more seconds before we reveal the results. Okay. We have about 30 people who have responded. Let's take a look at what you think. Okay. The majority of us believe that that is the case. We have about 3 that disagree. And okay, are there any brave souls who would like to, from the disagree, who disagree with the statement? We want to hear from you. Spanish language instruction should be maintained until students graduate. Some of us disagreed with this. Do we have anyone who would be willing to tell us why they disagree with the statement? And go ahead, and if you want to share, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, I would like to share something.
Yes, yes, Mr. Kiana.
I just answered in neutral, but kind of disagree too, you know, because it depends, you know, there are many scenarios, there are many cases. So in my personal case with my daughter and my son, when we came to this country, they didn't speak any English. They learned English, but their Spanish was perfect. They didn't need any Spanish instruction. They got some instruction, but I think depend on the family, depend of the, I mean, different cases. You know, that's why I said neutral or disagree.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know if it makes sense. I mean, every depend on the student, depend of the different cases, different scenarios.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for volunteering those thoughts, because I think you're right. It's not black and white when we have to consider different scenarios. What about for those of you who agreed with the statement? I think the majority of us in the Zoom are agreed with the statement. Is there anyone who would like to share their thoughts?
I guess I could share since, but I think, so, I mean, I was born here, I grew up here. I had a early exit bilingual education. So in 3rd grade, they switched us from pretty much what was 100% Spanish to 100% English. I just think about what I would have learned of what should have been, or technically, I mean, it is my first language, but as most people who grow up here, I think English becomes the dominant language after some time. But I think it would have been very interesting to expand my knowledge in Spanish. Because I have kids, like sometimes when I talk to the kids, I'll tell them, well, you know, once you're older, you can do this, you can do that. And they're like, but that doesn't exist in Spanish. And I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't exist in Spanish? Well, you know, I'm going to get to a point where it's only going to be English, especially when I taught the upper grades. And so it's like in their minds, the Spanish is very limited to what they can do. And that's just not true. Because you have scientists, you have doctors who, you know, do that in their home country. And I think that the way that we see education when it comes to being a bilingual student, it's only for like a short amount of time and then it stops. And then it's up to the student or up to the parents if they're going to talk to their children in Spanish or not. But if you open that mind, I mean, they can make so many more connections than before.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Rendon, for sharing your thoughts. What you're saying is really resonating with me and my own experiences as a bilingual learner. And you know, going to what we're trying to, you know, shift the thinking here. I know many instructional models stop Spanish literacy. There's certain models that stop Spanish literacy after a certain grade, and later maybe they might be or not be supported by ESL or ELD in that transition. But what we're proposing is a continuation of Spanish literacy and literacy-based ELD. I myself have benefited from the continuation of it, like Ms. Rendon was just speaking to, furthering my Spanish through high school and even at the university level. So why is this sort of important to think about?
Oh, Maria, could I? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's a very good question on the chat that says, if we maintain English instruction, shouldn't we maintain Spanish instruction until kids graduate? And I'm considering both perspectives, which I thought were really good. If right now in my life, I've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to have studied both formally English and Spanish. If I had a choice right now to take a literature class in Spanish or an English class in chemistry or a class in chemistry taught in English, I for sure would pick the Spanish literature class because that's what I think I need. That's what could feed and support my developing bilingualism. And it is true that when dual language programs reach high school, it is very, very difficult because kids sometimes have to make the choice between, am I going to take band or am I going to take Spanish? And they're both offered at the same hour. So Jorge, and I hope you don't mind if I call you by your first name, that I think it's absolutely true. You say, well, what I need most is. Now, Ms. Rendon, I think Liz is your first name, right? What I heard you saying is that you didn't have the opportunity, that all of a sudden there was no opportunity to continue to develop yourself into languages, that your only opportunity was English because it was an abrupt transition. And I think we have to consider both perspectives. What can we do to maximize children's opportunities to learn, to continue to learn formally and informally in both of their languages? It's a little bit easier in elementary school than it is as kids get older into secondary school and college. So that's all I wanted to say. Sorry, Maria.
Oh, no, not at all, Dr. Escamilla. I think, thank you for unpacking the complexity here, and really getting at the nuances of how complicated it is for us to think about instruction, especially because of those different structural structures that are in place that put us in difficult situations of choosing, you know, what we want to do. So on this slide here, this is a study that was done in 2002 by Thomas and Collier, and it sort of speaks to this understanding that students do benefit from learning both languages over time. And so what I just want to point to is the one that has the red the red line, the red dots, the red line, that is an enrichment model. And that was based on a performance, English reading performance of English language learners, or what we want to call emergent bilinguals, in a two-way dual language program. And we see that these students had the highest English reading performance over time because of their exposure to two languages. So this graph just basically points to the benefits of the two-way dual language model, as opposed to other models that were studied in this research. And we know that many states are now doing the seal of biliteracy. Texas being one. Dr. Escamilla, any thoughts about the seal of biliteracy?
No, only that what a fantastic opportunity it is in all of these states. I think the challenge for us is to figure out how we're going to do it and do it well. And I think it speaks a lot to the questions that people had about how long you study one language and how long you study another language. What the seal of biliteracy is saying is that formally kids ought to have an opportunity to learn in two languages, to learn two languages, and to learn through and about two languages. And this is a fantastic opportunity for our country. It is an opportunity. There's a question in the chat. Maria, do you mind if I deal with it before we move on?
Absolutely. This is the perfect time. And I was just going to invite for questions, because we are going to be moving on to the next part.
Carlos asked the question about, he says, much confusion exists about whether or not we are teaching language or content. What are your thoughts on this? And I think that is a fantastic question. And when it's sort of the question of the hour. But back in the dark ages, when I went to graduate school, we learned that if you are going to really dominar un idioma, you have to do three things. You have to learn the language. So you have to learn language. You gotta, engage in the struggle of learning the grammar and learning vocabulary. That's learning language. But you also have to be able to use the language to learn. So you have to be able to use Spanish to learn chemistry or to learn math. And you have to be able to, you have to know about the language. You have to know how your language works. So you have to know that when we say something like, when we make homely investments, that homely carries a particular semantic meaning in English that wouldn't go with a parent involvement. So we have to do those three things. So the confusion about teaching language or teaching content really shouldn't be a confusion, because we need to do it all. You really don't know a language unless you know enough of a language to be able to use the language to learn content. So those are my thoughts, Carlos. If there are other, so Maria, I'm going to turn it back over to you to take the last few questions before we move on.
Okay, let me go ahead and check the chat is to see if there are any additional questions. And if someone wants to quickly unmute themselves, if they have a question that they would like to make orally, that's also perfectly fine right now. And we can maybe take one or two more questions before we move on to the next part.
I have a question.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gomez. Go ahead.
Just going back to the content and language, is there one that comes first, or is it just more of a circle kind of thing?
So I'm going to invite all of my colleagues from Literacy Squared to chime in if they want to. But this goes directly to the fact that most of our studies about language up until the last, 15, 20 years have been about monolingualism. Because generally what happens is that kids are born and they learn a language, and then they go to school and they use that language to learn content. But that isn't all they do. When they go to school, they also learn they also expand their language. They expand their vocabulary, they expand their grammar, they learn to read, they learn to write, but they also use the language to learn. And so what we're faced with now is that we need to do that in 2 languages. Now, one of our challenges and also our opportunities is that when we get kids who are new arrivals into our schools, who come to school not speaking English, is that we are challenged to teach language and content at the same time. And we have to understand the challenge that that presents to kids when they don't know the language of instruction in school. I hope that didn't make it worse. But
No.
that's,
I would like to say something.
sure.
I would like to share that I used to teach Spanish immersion for 10 years in San Antonio in first and second grade, and to 20 students who didn't speak one word in Spanish. And so everything, I was teaching only content. No Spanish rules, nothing, just content. But in the same time, they were learning the language.
Sure,
At
absolutely.
the end of the year, you know, their Spanish was really good, and of course, good content.
Mhm. Yes, you can absolutely use content to learn language. There's no question about it. Every content has a specific vocabulary, has a specific way of using syntax, but that doesn't excuse us from needing to teach children their language, how language works. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for your questions and your comments. And I encourage you to enter those in the chat as well as we continue with the presentation, the PD. So with that, I will hand it off to Dr. Escamilla to begin talking about the holistic biliteracy framework.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for everything that you did this morning. I am realizing what a challenge this Zoom platform is with regard to, we want to converse with you, and in order to do that, we have to look at the chat, so Maria's had to look at the chat, she's had to do the split screen, she's had to make sure that we're on time, she's had to do all these kinds of things that I'm not sure if I'm up to the task. And so Maria's going to be helping me, and bear with me, because I came late into this learning how to do all of these things. When we developed Literacy Squared, we also developed something called a holistic biliteracy framework. And when you get your book, and you're going to get it, it's on page 18. This same picture is on page 18. I know it's a little bit busy, and I know it's a little bit complicated, but it represents our view of exactly what we were just talking about: content and meta language and learning language and all of that. What we attempted to do was kind of take apart literacy instruction as we were seeing it in the United States, and making observations on what is missing, what could we do better, and how do we try to reinforce the idea that Spanish and English should share the same status. Because a whole lot of kids who know Spanish, but they don't want to use it because it's stigmatized, and they feel like speaking Spanish is not as good as speaking English. So when we created this framework, you will see that we put Spanish and English side by side, not one up from the other, and that was to ensure that we value and respect the status of both of the languages. Within the little circles, you see Spanish literacy and literacy-based ELD. Within the little circles, you see little pictures of things. And it's my responsibility the next few minutes to talk about and encourage you to engage in discussion about this framework. So what do we do to encourage the development of biliteracy in our schools? And one of the things that we noticed, we didn't notice, but the research told us that about 64% of all of the instruction that's called literacy in elementary schools really wasn't literacy, it was reading. That we spent way, way, way more time on reading than we did on writing or teaching oral language or developing metalinguistic awareness. So we intentionally adapted this framework from Mexico to also give value to things that we consider to be important literacy skills that aren't necessarily right now emphasized in US literacy programs. So you see that by Spanish, you see little people, little people talking to each other. That's oracy or oral language. I'm going to talk about each one of these things separately. You see a book that's for reading, you see a pencil that's for writing, and you see a little person ideating, that's for metalinguistic awareness. So I'm going to talk about each one of those things. But what we're saying, notice that the pie there, the pie chart is 4 equal parts. So one part is not more important than the other parts. In fact, we know that we can use writing to teach reading. And we know that kids who talk about what they're reading understand more than if they don't get a chance to talk about what they're reading, and that enhances their reading. So we're trying to give emphasis to different literacy skills than had been emphasized before. So Maria, could we do the next slide? Okay, so you see the little book there, that's reading. And you all know what that means. But then if we go to the next slide, Maria, we know that teaching students to read in their first language promotes higher levels of achievement in English. I want to say that again, teaching students to read in their first language promotes higher levels of achievement in English. We've also had subsequent research that we have done that has said teaching kids to read in 2 languages simultaneously does not impede the development of either language. In other words, little kids are quite capable of learning to read and write in 2 languages at the same time without being confused if we have good instruction. Okay, writing is the next one with the little pencil. And we noticed that writing instruction was really undervalued, but children can learn to 2 languages at the same time, including reading and writing, without becoming confused and without impeding progress in either. I like this little cartoon where the little dog is saying meow to the cat, and the man says it's because he's bilingual or she's bilingual. I don't know if that's I don't know about that dog. Okay, at any rate, we know that you can do that. Oracy is the 3rd little piece of the pie, if you will, and oracy is a type of oral language development, but it's those oral language skills that enable you to successfully interact with text. So Maria, teaching or, okay, I'm sorry, I keep getting ahead of myself. So you just don't need to listen, but I'm going to repeat it in case you didn't get it the first time. Teaching oracy means teaching the oral language skills and structures that are necessary for a child to be successful with the literacy objective. Okay, so there are 3 oracy components in our framework. And I've got some examples. As old as I am, I'm still learning vocabulary every day. And a lot of this vocabulary, I didn't want to learn, I just had to learn. And so we learn vocabulary because we have to, but our 3 oracy components are language structures, that what language do students need to express their ideas more accurately and in more complex ways. And these are what we call language functions also. We need to consider different levels of language proficiency. That's a first aspect of oracy. The second is vocabulary, to refine and expand students' knowledge of words and concepts, and to develop high utility and technical words. And then the third is dialogue. And if I were to propose to you something that we are in dire need of, it's the ability to engage in dialogue civilly. Right now, we've kind of lost some of that over the past few years. Dialogue is strategically planning questions to elicit meaningful discussions and foster conversations. And boy, this medium makes it a little hard to do that. But I want to give you some examples. Here are vocabulary words that I learned since, just a minute, not quite ready to go on yet. So here are, back to the oracy components, please. There we go. One more. Okay. So here are vocabulary words I've learned just since the beginning of May. Flipgrid, Padlet, Kudo board, Jamboard, split screen, and breakout room. All of those words I didn't know before May. And now I know all of them. I don't necessarily know how to use them all, but those are new vocabulary words. Now, how might I use those to create a conversation? Well, I might create a sentence structure. And the sentence structure might say something like, what do you do in a breakout room? That's the question. And then I would give students a structure so that they can answer the question if they don't yet have the words. What do you do in a breakout room? Well, you can think about it and put something in the chat. What can you do in a breakout room? You can talk to friends. You can ask and answer questions. You can, what? You complete, that's the sentence structure. You can have structured conversations, absolutely. Thank you. If I wanted to create a dialogue, I might ask something like, are virtual platforms good for learning? Why or why not? A second dialogue question might be, are virtual platforms more effective than in-person learning? Why or why not? Jody says in a breakout room, you can connect with others. You see how she's answering the sentence structures? So in our oracy components, there are 3 different aspects of oracy, and we like to teach them in ways that are integrated and that are not distinct from each other. Okay, Maria, I think we can move on because we're going to come back to this. You are going to have tomorrow, you're going to be treated to 3 hours of learning about oracy. And I think that you're going to see how beneficial the potential is for the children that you teach. Okay, the 4th component in our holistic biliteracy framework is something called meta language. And meta language means learning about language. Meta language is chapter 5. You can go on, Maria. So meta language is thinking and talking about language. So why is it in English we get in a car, but on a bus? I'm a native English speaker. I don't know. But that's meta language. Why do we say that? It's understanding relationships within and across language. It develops children's meta-linguistic awareness in 2 languages. So in meta language and English for English speakers, what do we need at the beginning of a sentence? And I was going to have you all unmute and shout at this point. Unmute and shout at a point. Shout everyone. What do we need at the beginning of the sentence?
Capital
letters.
Very good. You're all still awake and somewhat with me. Yes, we need a capital letter. Be unmuted still. What do we need at the beginning of a sentence in Spanish when we're asking a question?
Question mark.
Yeah, you need the question mark. You need the inverted question mark. So the answers are different across languages, but you need to know both of those things. Okay, so your voices are lovely, but we're going to mute you again. So meta language in English for emerging bilinguals. In English, we use only 1 question mark at the end of the sentence, but in Spanish, we use 2, 1 at the beginning and 1 at the end. That's meta language, learning how language works. You need to learn it both within your language and you need to learn it across languages in dual language programs. Okay, Maria. So why do we do this? So the purpose of teaching meta-linguistic awareness is to help emerging bilingual children discover commonalities and differences in their 2 language systems. We have pretty good research that helps to develop the executive function in your brain. And we used to call it years ago cognitive flexibility. It's what makes bilinguals different than monolinguals. A secondary purpose is to analyze syntax, semantic expressions, and grammar across and within languages. Okay, so now we're going to use Mentimeter. And Maria's gonna help me with this, right, Maria? We have a poll. This will help us for future professional development sessions too, and help me know if I did a good job of explaining this. So which of the following would you like to know more about? Oracy, reading, writing, or meta language? Very, very, very interesting. 24, 25. 29, I think everyone has had a chance to weigh in. So, oh, maybe not quite. I'll wait a couple of minutes. This is very interesting to me. And this is something that we have wanted to also do more research on. So most of you said 63% of you would like to know more about meta language. And interestingly, one of the great advantages of the bilingual units you're going to be learning about and hopefully developing is the opportunity to develop meta-linguistic awareness across languages, as well as reading and writing and oracy. So thank you, really interesting. And like I said, tomorrow you're going to engage in oracy, and then the next day writing. Okay, so it is important to us in a holistic biliteracy framework that we have cross-language connections, that we tell the kids that the two languages are connected. So often, I think, we tell kids, okay, it's Spanish time or it's English time, but we never tell them that somehow these two languages are related. And in the case of Spanish and English, they both share an alphabetic principle and they're sister languages. Sue reminds me, thank you, Sue, that there's going to be some attention to meta language when the team does the dictado on Thursday, but we're just going to touch the surface. And that's what you do in introductory sessions after all. So the teaching of cross-language connections involves an explicit awareness of language form and structure. It's a type of contrastive analysis of language. It's separate from content, and it's an essential element of literacy and biliteracy development. Okay, we've mentioned before, I'm going to repeat it again. This includes teaching meta language within language and teaching meta language across languages. So why do we say es la una or son las dos? Because within language, we know that one is singular and one is plural. That is within language, within Spanish and within English. Kids need to know that too. That's part of developing both of their languages. But across languages, I can say, well, we say tengo 8 años, I have in Spanish, but in English, we say I am. That's across language, meta language. Okay, Maria. All right, so what we encourage teachers to do is to have explicit language comparison charts in their classrooms. So you will see here, diferencias. This is from one teacher's classroom in Literacy Squared, where she has español and English, sorry. And she says, crayola morada, showing that in Spanish, the adjective comes after the noun, and purple crayon in English, which shows that the adjective comes before the noun. Or títulos de libros. Pepita habla dos veces. This is the same, well, it's a book, it's a bilingual book, but it's the same story. And so the teacher's showing that in Spanish, we do not capitalize titles, but in English, we do. Good, there's some excellent examples here. El agua y no la agua, or el tema and not la tema. Or ¿cómo te llamas? And what's your name? Showing that we need two question marks in Spanish, but not in English. So we encourage teachers to have these kind of posters. We used to tell people to totally separate languages, have an English wall and a Spanish wall. And here we're saying to develop meta language is very helpful if you illustrate to kids explicitly differences across languages. Okay, Maria. In the chat, someone's asking me, is there a resource website for anchor charts that we can display for language differences? So we have some in the book that you're going to get, but we certainly encourage teachers to create their own from things that you're studying. Yeah. So we recommend, as the situations arise in class, when it comes to a kid using La Mapa, you can say, you know, that's really good. That should be what it is, but it isn't. It's El Mapa. And so you could have something that's an exception to a rule. That could be a nice chart. We encourage teachers to do this as the situation comes up. And then connecting language environments. And this is where we are so thrilled to be working with San Antonio Unified School District, because the way that we like to do connecting of language environments is through the teaching of biliteracy units, where you are using texts that connect with each other either by theme, or maybe because one is a bilingual text and you can see how the differences in the way the text is written in English and Spanish, or by topic. So you're studying the environment and you're going to read about the environment in English and you're going to read about the environment in Spanish. So we like to encourage people to connect language environments. San Antonio has done a lot of work taking the English reading materials that are state adopted and the Spanish ones and creating bilingual units. Okay. So all of this to say, planning and instruction in a biliteracy class is different than a monolingual class because you're planning for two languages. And we have to be thoughtful about how to capitalize on the reciprocal and mutually reinforcing nature of how that which one learns in one environment has a direct effect on what's learned in the other one. We maximize children's opportunities to engage in oracy, reading, writing, instruction in Spanish literacy and literacy-based ESL. Okay, Maria. Okay, now time for preguntas. So if you would kindly write them in the chat.
Could I unmute myself or for
Sure,
questions?
you already did.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Just going back to the anchor charts, is that mostly for like grammar rules and oracy rules, or?
No, it could be syntax. So you saw in the example with the Crayola and the crayon and the Crayola morada. It could be all kinds of things. It could be syntax, semantics, grammar function, punctuation. Yes, cognados, cognates, absolutely. And I see here, I'm going to get in trouble with my team, but I was supposed to pose to you a chat question. What experiences have you had? This is a question I would like for you to answer, please. What experiences have you had doing cross-language connections in your literacy program right now? So what experiences have you had? We know you're all new to San Antonio, but you've obviously had other experiences, student teaching or teaching in another school district. Thank you, Maria. She put it in the chat. So take a minute, think about it, and let's respond so we get a sense for what kinds of experiences that you've had. Okay, I'm going to give wait a couple of minutes for a few other people to respond. And you're going to be sorry if you don't, because we have another giveaway.
We have another giveaway. Yes.
Yet another giveaway.
And I'm really enjoying reading all of the different experiences all of the teachers Dr. Escamilla have with these things we're mentioning. So it's not necessarily something new, but I think what we're doing here is uplifting the strategies that we're using in the classrooms. Some have spoken to using the anchor charts with regionalismos y cognados.
Yeah. And you can have false cognates as well as true cognates, right?
Absolutely.
So like sopa isn't soap.
Yeah, and some are commenting that perhaps now they're going to be using anchor charts. Okay, so I think folks are still entering.
Yeah, we'll let people,
Okay, let me go ahead and
let me find the beginning.
Let's see. So I have my chips ready, and I know there's 46 participants. So let's see. We have several answers. Let me pick a number. And the number I have is number 9.
9, okay. 1, 2, 3, 9. Rendon, but you don't have your first name here. Miss Rendon, you are the lucky winner. If you would privately message me your physical address, we'll be happy to send you some books. And I believe that we are just about now on the hour, and perhaps you need to stand up, stretch, walk around, get a glass of water, and we'll come back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Yeah, I'm dying here.
You're dying or crying?
Hey Kathy, just so you know, you're not muted, so your conversation is heard between you and Manuel.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
No worries, I just wanted you to know.
I'm not sure if everyone heard the barking. No. Okay. I heard the barking and it scared me. So I'm glad it didn't scare everybody else. Okay, Dr. Escamilla, I think everyone is coming back. Yes. Oh, I think you're muted, Dr. Escamilla.
So first I'm not muted when I need to be, and then I'm muted when I don't need to be.
Oh.
That's the story of my life with technology. So welcome back, everyone. And thank you for your endurance, because this is a long afternoon for you. I wanted to ask Monica if she wanted to say something about the biliteracy units that the district is developing, because they were created based on our holistic biliteracy framework. And I know nothing about how you get them. That's my only question. If
Yes.
Monica is, oh, there you are, Monica.
Yes, I'm right here. I'm sorry, I was answering the chat. So
Of course.
we do have biliteracy lessons available. We have been sharing with teachers. Our instructional specialists have shared in the last, probably the first 9 weeks, we've had lessons available. Now teachers are creating their own. And so we're going to continue working with a lot of the lessons and the trainings. And after this session, we'll have like a follow-up training to answer any questions that teachers may still have. And so, yes, I've created also, and that's what I was doing right now, adding people to like a Google Drive for everybody here to be able to open and share. I saw some of the questions that were asked about anchor charts. We do have examples, so I'm going to add all that, all the information you're sharing with us, the Escamilla team, and resources from San Antonio ISD. Hopefully, I answered that question.
Yeah, oh, you absolutely did. That is just fantastic. And this is one of the very few places that we have worked with where you've actually taken up the work and applied the units to our framework. And so we're delighted, and we're really interested in your feedback about using these units with kids and how beneficial you think it is to them. We think it'll be very beneficial, but we certainly want to hear your feedback too. So thank you, Monica. And what I'm really glad to hear is that teachers have them immediately for their use right now. Because for me, nothing helps me learn like an example. So when you start to create your own, having an example is very, very helpful. So for the last part of this afternoon, however, we're going to completely change gears, and we're going to talk about assessment. And in our assessment framework, we call it Building Trajectories Toward Biliteracy. And we have so much work to do, not just as a Literacy Squared team, but as a nation. I don't know how we can say that we want everybody to earn a seal of biliteracy when all we're doing is assessing people's competence in English. And so I heard some of you in the chat refer to the TEKS and the TELPAS, and and it gets a little discouraging, especially if you're an upper grade teacher, to spend a lot of time encouraging kids to learn to read and write in Spanish, only to have them assessed in English only, and have that be the way that somebody decides if they're a good reader or writer, if they're a smart kid or not. And so we know that we need to change our assessment practices, and we're going to share our ideas with you today. And we're going to say we still have a lot of work to do on this. So in the book, the chapters are chapter 7 and 8, which when you get the book about what I'm going to be talking about, it's explained in more detail there. But okay, so with our theories of bilingualism and biliteracy, and a lot of what you all have put on the chat tells me you know more about this than I do. But that one of the theories that we have used in developing this program, and in fact the assessment system, is that the theory of holistic bilingualism. And it says each bilingual is a unique individual who integrates knowledge of and from both languages to create something more than two languages that function independently of each other. That sounds kind of like gobbledygook, but what it means is 1 + 1 is greater than 2. A bilingual is greater than Spanish or English because they've got two languages working in their mind at once. I prefer the term, the ontology of being bilingual, and that's the way of being. And ontology is the branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being. Being bilingual is different than being monolingual because you've got two languages at your resources. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, I hope. So what do an abeja and an elevator have in common? And you can only respond to this riddle if you are, now you can only respond. You can only understand it and answer it if you're bilingual. So yeah, so don't Google it because we only have a few minutes here. So what do they have? The two, both of them go from floor to floor. Think about it. La abeja va. Okay, Maria, I think if you, yeah. So what do an abeja and an elevator have in common? They both go from floor to floor. Now, the only way that you could understand that is if you are bilingual and you understand that floor in English has a different meaning than flor in Spanish. But in that way, the abeja and the elevator are alike. You've probably heard this one, but let's do the next one anyway, to give you the sense. So why did the tamale have to go to the hospital? Porque está malito. Everybody unmute so I can hear it. The thing that I miss most about face-to-face is the fellowship, you know, the seeing people smile. So if you understood that and you are bilingual, it means that you have a different ontology than being monolingual, because if you told one of your monolingual friends, they would go, I don't get it. What's funny about it? Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about why in our assessment practices, it's not enough to simply assess kids in Spanish and in English. We have to take a look at how they're using two languages together. And we have to say that our Spanish and our English are L1 plus L2. So a bilingual doesn't equal two monolinguals. It's greater than two monolinguals. The ontology of being bilingual is different than being monolingual. And so we feel that we have a need for a holistic interpretation of bilingual growth and development. We are in the process of analyzing some writing samples that we took last year before the pandemic from San Antonio kids. And if you see in their writing, you'll see how they're using two languages. And what we need to do is say who they are is their Spanish plus their English. So I'm going to give you this example. I know that you likely do not use any longer the DRA and the EDL assessments, but these are the ones that we did our research on. So if you have a paper and a pencil, and I know it's a pretty old concept right now, because what I have around here, I have a bunch of papers, I have my phone, I have my computer, I have my lipstick, but I can't find a pen. But if you have a pen, I want you to write down the number 16. Okay, and think of 16 as being grade level. So in the DRA and the EDL, at the end of first grade, kids were thought to be on grade level if they were at level 16. So I'm going to show you the case of the monolingual and the bilingual and why we tend to underestimate what bilingual kids can do in our assessments. So Brooke is our monolingual English speaker. And she took the DRA, which is the English. So where after you write 16, write DRA equals English. And then write EDL equals Spanish. So Brooke is in the end of the first grade, and she got an 18 on the DRA. Is 18 higher than 16? Please tell me yes, or I'll be worried about you. So yes, so in this case, Brooke is 18, and that means she's above grade level. Okay, now Pilar, now the other thing is that Brooke also took the EDL, She's monolingual in English, but she took the EDL, which is the Spanish version, and she got a 0. So the best that Brooke can do is 18 plus 0. Her score is 18. Now Pilar took the DRA. She took the English test and got a 10. So what are we going? Oh my goodness, Pilar is below grade level. What are we going to do? Well, let's see how well she does in Spanish. So she takes the EDL and she gets a 12. And we're going, oh my goodness, she's also below grade level in Spanish. She's low in 2 languages. Our argument has always been that that isn't the way we should look at kids like Pilar, because who she is her DRA plus her EDL. So 10 plus 12 is 22. Now that puts Pilar ahead of Brooke if we're using a bilingual trajectory. So what we're saying in Literacy Squared is that we need to normalize emerging biliteracy through assessment, interpretation, and our discourse, the way we talk about things. Too frequently we talk about, oh, what are we going to do with these kids who are below in 2 languages? And that isn't the way that we would like to think that we're looking at it. But we have a lot of work to do in this area. I'm going to share with you today what we've done. Okay, so Maria, can we have the next? Okay, so in parallel monolingual assessment, Brooke gets reported to be above grade level and doing well. And that's the report that her parents get. That's the report the state of Texas gets. That's the report that gets published in the newspaper. And that gets you to be an accredited or a not accredited school. Pilar gets reported as being below grade level in 2 languages. But if we use a bilingual assessment, then Pilar is on a trajectory toward biliteracy. Listen to the different way we talk about it. But pobre Brooke is just a monolingual. Now that's our argument. Okay, Maria, I think we could go. So in Literacy Squared, we suggest to districts that you assess students annually in reading and writing in Spanish and English, and that we begin to develop trajectories. Assessment results for individuals are calculated based on grade level ranges and not fixed scores, because those of you who are concerned with your weight, I should be, but I'm not, know that you can weigh one day and you'll weigh something and you'll go, yay! And then the next day you weigh and you go, darn, I didn't even eat anything and I gained a pound. So we should not look at people in fixed scores because they range and they fluctuate. It's much better to look at kids on a range. So we've created, instead of fixed scores, instead of saying 16 means you're on grade level, we've created ranges. All right, so Maria, I think we can move on. So these are literacy zones that we have created, and notice that instead of a 16 for first grade, at the end of first grade, we've considered 12 to 16 to be the range in Spanish and 8 to 10 in English. Now I'm going to show you how this works, and then we're going to try it. We're going to put you in breakout rooms and we're going to ask you to try this yourself. Okay. Now, Maria, let's see. All right, so what you have on this slide, you see the biliterate reading zones, which is the same as the slide I just showed you. And we've got spring assessment results for first grade, and we've got the results of 5 students there. Okay, so in red highlighted, in order to be at grade level, in a biliterate zone, okay, so 16, you need to keep that 16 number, first 16 number. That is the traditional publisher's way of looking at kids. So 16 in EDL means you're on grade level in Spanish, and the 16 in DRA means you're on grade level in English. And let's look at our kids, and then we'll come back to the biliterate zone. So with your paper and pencil, I hope you have one. Monica is a 14. Is she on grade level? David is a 16. Is he on grade level? Rebecca, I want you to be writing yes or no. or C or no. Depends on what your preference is. Rebecca is a 12. Is she on grade level? Elena is an 18. Is she on grade level? And Jose is a 6. Is he on grade level? So this is our dual language class. This is spring of first grade, and we're looking at Spanish results. And we see that 3 of our 5 kids are not on grade level. Now, what is everybody doing besides slashing their wrists? What are we going to do? Oh my God, these kids aren't learning. We're not going to be able to have our dual language program. Okay, now that's a monolingual way to look at Spanish reading results. Now let's look at the English. Remember, 16 is our magic number. Is Monica on grade level? Right, yes or no? Is David on grade level? Is Rebecca on grade level? Is Elena on grade level? Is Jose on grade level? Okay, the answer on my little answer key here is that 100% of the kids are below grade level in English. That's what gets reported to the state, to your schools, in the newspaper, to your parents, and that's what makes everybody go, oh my goodness, the kids are below grade level in both languages. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. In the monolingual paradigm, it looks like dual language is failing. So below grade level in Spanish is Monica, Rebecca, and Jose. That's 60% of the kids. Below grade level in English is everyone. Now let's go back to the slide before. Maria, please. Look at the biliterate reading zones. If we, oh, no, back to the other one. Yeah, sorry, Maria. So if we look at 12 to 16 as a range, now we've got a totally different picture. Because if 12 to 16, if 16 is our fixed score, that's all you can be. If the range is 12 to 16, we see that Monica's doing well for biliteracy. So is David, so is Rebecca, so is Elena, and only Jose is not. If we're looking at the same kids for DRA, which is English reading, we can see that Monica is doing fine. David is not on a trajectory. Rebecca is on the trajectory. Elena is on the trajectory, but Jose is not. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. All right, so if we have trajectories toward biliteracy, we see that dual language is developing biliteracy. And on the biliterate trajectory are Monica, Rebecca, and Elena, 60%. So all of a sudden, our biliteracy program looks like it's doing well. It doesn't look like kids are below grade level in 2 languages. We're arguing about a trajectory toward biliteracy. Now, I do need to tell you that when we started creating this program, it was for one-way programs. 2-way's a different game, of course, because we have English-speaking children. But the way that you all mentioned on the Mentimeter was that most of the children that you're teaching are sequential bilinguals, or most of you are. Okay, so what I want you to do is, Maria, would you go to the next slide, please? All right, this is second grade, not first grade. So in second grade, the magic number to be on grade level is 28. So you need to write down 28 somewhere. We're going to put you in breakout rooms to see how this works for us. And in our trajectories, in our we see that 18 to 28 in EDL is what we consider to be in the biliterate reading zone in Spanish, and 12 to 16 in English. So 28 in the monolingual paradigm is considered to be at grade level. So here are your questions before we put you in breakout rooms. exactly what we just did, but you're going to do it with groups of people. And so you get a chance to talk to each other and not just to me. I would like for you to look at EDL Spanish and see who's at the publisher's grade level. That's 28. That's the monolingual criteria for Spanish. 28 for EDL or 28 for DRA. So who's at grade level using the monolingual criteria in Spanish and English? And then using the biliterate zones, I want you to take a look at who's in the trajectory toward biliteracy. Okay, so Maria, are we ready to put people in breakout rooms?
Yes, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can go ahead and put everybody in the breakout rooms. And Dr. Escamilla, I think that we can also, if people didn't get the chance to look at all of the scores, I will enter those in our shared folder.
Right.
So I will make sure that the charts can be entered in the shared folder so that everyone has the picture of it. So let me go ahead and do the breakout rooms now. Okay, and we will see everyone back shortly.
Hola.
Hola, Miss Mónica, ¿cómo está?
Bien, ¿y ustedes?
Bien, gracias.
¿Les está gustando la presentación?
Sí, mucho, gracias.
Qué bueno. Entonces, nos iba a dar ella ¿le tomaron foto ustedes o yo no le tomé foto?
Sí. Ay, no, yo tampoco pensé que iba a aparecer aquí y no, nada más anoté el número 28 de segundo grado, que era lo esperado.
Básicamente.
Lo tengo aquí.
Ah, perfecto.
Nada más que...
Mira, y además eres maestra de segundo grado. Así que
sí.
Déjame ver si lo puedo compartir rápido.
Entonces, estaban hablando de... Yo también puedo tomar fotos de algo, del día, de la...
Sí, es lo que no me gusta de los breakout rooms, que no te dejan después ver.
Sí, no tomé la foto.
Bueno, ¿qué tal si nos dices nada más el número y el niño y nosotros te decimos si están en el...
Sí.
En el
Bueno,
grado?
Elisa en EOD tiene un 20.
No está en el nivel.
Y luego en el DRE está en 12. Entonces está en lo que dice aquí el biliterate reading zones, está dentro de allí, pero de acuerdo con pues la otra cosa, ¿verdad? No está.
Exacto. Si es monolingüe, entonces no está en el nivel, pero si estuviera, está rumbo a la proyección dual porque tiene un 32 en total, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Así que es como, okay.
Y luego Fernando, él tiene, él tiene 24 en el EOD y luego un 14 en DRA.
O sea, según yo no está tampoco en el nivel en un monolingüe, pero sí está en un buen nivel en la trayectoria para bilingüe, ¿verdad?
Luego, ya pude. Ok.
Ya.
Ok. Luego, Victoria.
Ah, qué padre, no sabía esto.
Estoy usando mi Elmo. Ok.
Super.
Victoria está 18 y luego a 10 aquí en el DRA. Entonces, igual también.
No, no está en el nivel, pero sí alcanzó la proyección porque llegó justito al 28.
Sí. Bueno, en el DRA no llegó. Aquí. Oh, ya nos tenemos que ir.
Tenemos que regresar. Bueno, muchas gracias.
A usted.
Double check here.
And I'll jump in. Okay, thank you all for coming back. That was, we realized that you didn't have access and the way we were trying to give you access wasn't working. And so we're calling you back so that we can put the link in the chat and then send you back into your rooms and then you'll have it. But because the link can only be seen by everyone if you're in the main space, we had to call you back. So I was telling Maria not to sweat it, like we haven't had a glitch, this is okay. But as soon as we get everyone back in this room, she will put a link in the chat box and then we'll send you back out to do the task. And I'm getting all kinds of texts from our team.
Okay, they're coming back. That was really fast.
Yeah, you'll know on your end, Maria, when all the rooms have closed. You should be able to see that.
Yeah.
So don't post it in the chat until they're all back.
Mine closed. We couldn't do it. We never found the chart.
Right.
We know, Olivia.
Yeah.
We knew
Okay.
you didn't have access, and the only thing we could do is call you all back first so that Maria could put a link in the chat. Otherwise, we have to go into each individual chat room to do the link, and that
Got
was
it.
too much effort.
Hey,
So
we then learn.
yes,
We thought we had that figured out, but obviously the best laid plans go astray sometimes. So
it is what it is. And I know
Yeah.
everyone here has been doing online teaching and online learning, and everyone knows these things happen. It's okay.
and hybrid too. They've also been doing hybrid, some of them.
Well,
which sounds even worse.
This is fantastic. You guys are, it's way more doable than I expected.
Everyone is back. Hi, everyone. We're going to grade you on this assignment. And so we want to be sure that you're going to turn in your work. Otherwise, you don't get to go home this afternoon. So let me know in the chat if that's not okay. Oh, nobody's weighing in on the chat. Nobody sees my humor. Okay, so the problem is we had a slight glitch electronically, which was we thought you were going to be able to see that chart so you could do the exercise in your breakout rooms. So now we're going to try something else, and Maria's going to explain to you what that something else is.
Okay, everyone. So I took a screenshot of the table. Sorry about that, and thank you for your patience. I have posted the link to where you will be able to see the table, and hopefully I set it so that everyone has access to it and that you won't be denied. But if you are, let me know, and I can fix that.
Someone says they need access in the chat.
What Miss
Okay.
Lily did was she just took a picture of it, so y'all wouldn't have to like. be on the-
That's an option. What you could put it, share your screen right now and have everybody break out their phones and take a picture of it.
Ah, sí se puede. Thanks, Ms. Gomez. You made us feel better. Okay, so
Maria can share the PowerPoint again on her screen.
Yeah.
And it's up for all of us to see. We can each take a photograph to take into the room with us.
Perfect.
I will do that now.
Problem solving, critical thinking.
Or panic.
No panic.
All in the.
Okay, weirdly, there you go. Okay. Everyone should be able to take a picture now. Oops.
Oops. ¿Qué pasó?
let's see where
It's
here
not
we
in
go.
present.
And I will.
Okay.
It's looking a little bit different for me.
Go to present on the very top right.
Up here.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The little chart where I can see people was covering that part. Thank you so much.
Okay, so take a photograph and Maria will send you all back into rooms.
And we're going to give you a little bit extra time so that you can, because we know this is not easy. This is not easy when we do this face to face. Okay.
Okay, I will stop sharing so that I can put everyone on in breakout rooms.
Bueno, pues ahora sí tomamos la foto.
Yo ahorita me tengo que ir, si se tarda mucho, porque tengo que ir a presentar a Mónica Lara a las 4 en otra sesión. Entonces, nomás 10 minutitos y ya ahorita me voy.
Sí, perfecto. Ok, lo único que me tiene entonces, ella dijo que solamente si tenía un 28 es que estaba en la trayectoria, ¿verdad? Pero lo que estoy viendo aquí es el DRA que dice del 12 al 16 en rojo, que si tiene un DRA entre 12 y 16, entonces está, no, perdón, tiene que ser un 16. Entonces está bien en segundo grado en inglés como monolingüe. Es que estoy viendo la foto, mira, aquí
Sí,
ves.
yo como lo entiendo,
Ajá.
es que 28 es como, el Estado está calificando a todos, ¿verdad?
Exacto.
Pero luego el Biliteracy Reading Zone es como lo estamos viendo nosotros y estamos viendo individualmente EOD, cualquier persona que esté entre 18 y 28 está bien, va bien en la trayectoria y luego también en DRA que está entre 12 y 16.
Pero es que lo que yo entendí es que, por ejemplo, digamos, ve a Francisco, que Francisco tiene un ELD de 10, lo cual me indica que está bajo, y luego tiene un DRA de 6, que también está bajo.
Sí.
Pero si yo sumo eso de Francisco, no llega tampoco a la trayectoria, porque tendría un 16. Entonces, Francisco sería alguien al que le tendríamos que poner atención porque realmente no alcanzó la trayectoria ni tampoco en monolingüe ni en bilingüe, ¿verdad?
Sí.
O lo estoy entendiendo mal.
Sí.
Eso es lo que estoy entendiendo. Y, por ejemplo, hay uno que tiene aquí, fíjate, Alejandro tiene 30 en ELD y 20 en DRA. Entonces, ese niño es un niño muy avanzado y tiene una trayectoria excelente. Entonces, ya podría estar quizá en un TELPAS en un 4. ¿Verdad? Eso, según yo, así es como le entendí yo, pero no sé si estoy entendiendo.
De Bilingual Trajectories, sí lo pero no tanto como las demás estrategias. Ahorita nos platican un poco más. Entonces, el 28 era el nivel de...
El nivel de segundo grado.
Entonces, pues estaría en DRA.
¿Verdad, Miss Otsuka? Es lo que yo entendí. También otro niño que es Jessica, por ejemplo, esa Jessica también está súper bien. Y Mireya.
¿De cuenta 68? Bien alto.
Bueno,
sí, están
yo
por
no
encima del...
¿O no?
No sabía que lo sumaban. Yo pensaba que era uno y luego el otro.
No, porque en el de primero ella explicó que por esa razón no se les toma en cuenta a los niños bilingües cuando están en una escuela monolingüe, porque no les toman en cuenta el resultado de los dos. Entonces, por eso es que los ven como at risk toda la vida, porque en vez de que estén viendo y sumando lo que es ser bilingüe de verdad y pueden alcanzar ese nivel, y ellos en una escuela monolingüe no lo alcanzan. Entonces, por eso siempre están at risk, at risk, at risk.
Exacto.
Y eso es lo injusto, eso es lo injusto.
Sí. La forma que lo vemos aquí es muy más positivo.
Exactamente. Nosotros como escuelas bilingües y duales vemos lo positivo de esto y por eso es que nuestros niños también salen mucho mejor en muchos otros aspectos, para mi punto de vista, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Hola, Mayra.
Hola.
Hola.
Hasta que vine y ahora pude conectar. Estaba tratando de conectarme al teléfono antes de cerrar el de aquí de la computadora.
Aquí estamos cerca, ¿verdad?
¿Ah?
Usted es la maestra de Twain, ¿sí, verdad?
Sí, sí. No me
Sí,
recuerdo
aquí estamos cerca.
Sí, yo también estuve en Twain, Miss Mónica. Yo soy estaba en kinder el año pasado, pero ahora soy la instructional coach. Sí, soy Miss Fernández. Y ahora estoy de instructional coach con Mr. Fonseca.
Bueno, felicidades. Yo antes estaba aquí mucho tiempo y luego por un año.
No sé, yo creo que como entré aquí con el teléfono que me dio el paso, me
Y
envió.
Miss Mónica está aquí entonces en la escuela.
Aquí estoy, UTSA, en su cuarto de UTSA. Aquí estoy haciendo todos los Zooms.
Entonces es mi vecina. Yo estoy acá también en el cuarto de mero abajo. El que le decimos el calabozo. Acá estoy.
No, aquí me dice que aquí hay espantos, me dice Jennifer. Le digo, no me digas.
¿Oh, sí?
Yo me quedo hasta las 7 aquí, 8. No.
Wow, no.
A veces, no siempre, pero de repente.
¿Qué tan tarde?
Sí, es que a veces hay gente y ni modo aquí me quedo, ya para que me voy a mi casa, no.
Ay, sí.
Okay.
Y de hecho ahorita ya me voy, porque tengo
es bueno saber que andas por aquí.
Sí, aquí estoy, para lo que necesiten. Si tienen preguntas, cualquier cosa. Bueno, pues ahorita regreso, me voy 20 minutos y regreso a la sesión. Le voy a ya le di host a Miss María, si acaso dicen algo, o sea, ojalá que no, me da mucho miedo que se vaya, cuando yo me salga, que se salga el Zoom.
El equipo, no creo, porque nada más se va, no pasa nada.
Ok, me voy a ir entonces, ahorita regreso. Gracias.
Bye.
Voy a ir.
Oye, Mayra.
I'm going to leave the room for a few minutes because I have a presentation to go, but I'll come back and jump in. If you need to give the host to somebody, it would be Carlos Gutierrez.
Okay, sounds good.
So I try to be back as soon as possible.
Okay, sounds good.
Another Zoom. Gracias.
Sí, de nada.